The interesting thing about the subconscious mind is that it's 100% deductive, meaning it accepts everything as truth. The conscious mind is inductive and deductive, actually more inductive, where you could pick and choose. The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between what is reality, meaning what you're using your imagination for, versus what is actually reality versus imagination, is what I mean. So when you start to write down this new self image and these new goals and imprint it in the subconscious mind, it is weird because it's unfamiliar, but understand that the subconscious mind is still accepting all of it. All of that is being accepted as truth. When you were a baby, your subconscious mind was completely open and all the things went in there the first 7 years of your upbringing. And now you're 40 years old, 70 years old, 60 years old, and you're acting as the same person. So if that's what built it, that's the same way to change it, the constant spaced repetition. And your environment is a huge input there.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thrive State podcast. I am your host, Dr. V, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And on today's podcast, I am super excited because I get to interview one of my friends, Ben Azadi. He has a new book coming out called Metabolic Freedom, and it's a must-have. 93% of all Americans are metabolically unhealthy, and we go into why that is the case. And we even go a little bit deeper as to why that is the case. And that might surprise you. The root cause of all these metabolic diseases, you're going to want to listen to this podcast, not just have some tips on health, but super inspired to live life again. So welcome back. This is the Thrive State podcast. If you're new to the podcast, welcome in. This is a place where every week I get a chance to talk to amazing people, thought leaders and experts in biohacking, longevity, wellness, relationships, but really on how to get people into the Thrive State. And what is the Thrive State for all the first timers? It is a state of being. It's an energy. It's a feeling that you have. And why is that important? Because that feeling actually correlates to physical, including neurotransmitters and hormones, and non-physical energy that becomes messages to your DNA that turns on and off genes that basically creates the health and performance in your life. This is why I am so excited about Thrive State. This is why I'm so excited about understanding bioenergetic intelligence. Because how you live your life, your thoughts, your feelings, your sleep, how you connect with people, that creates a feeling. That feeling becomes the message to your cells and ultimately creates your health. It also creates your relationships, your work, your business. It creates your reality. So can we start to wake up from potentially the reality, the identity, the thoughts, the actions, the feelings of our old self and stop stepping in to what it is like knowing that we've got this great miracle of life. Again, if you're new, let me give you a bonus just by dropping in. Go to thrivestatestarter.com. It'll give you some free resources, breath work that I use every single day. Breath work is one of those things that I use to shift my state. Remember, our state creates our biology. And so get you some of that. And then it also has some lecture notes and a lot of additional resources that get you on your Thrive State journey. If you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State, at thrivestatebook.com. It really gives you the framework as to how all this works. And if you are interested in having journal prompts or something that you could use to keep yourself accountable to being your best self, get my toolkit by going to mythrivestate.com/toolkit. Now, on to today's guest. He's been on the show before. He is someone that I have known in the health space. I see his content all the time. We actually met for the first time, I don't know, less than a year ago. But he's someone he's just a really authentic person. You hold some of these interviews and it's almost sort of like a different person you speak to versus the person that you meet. This guy's the real deal. He comes from a real place. He's got a real heart. And I think this book that's coming out is going to be a true game changer. Again, 93% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. We have over 120 million Americans with diabetes. And really, it's this metabolic dysfunction in our body that's really the root cause of so many different diseases, including Alzheimer's, neurodegenerative disorders, autoimmune disease. So fixing this is a game changer. So ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy this conversation with myself and Ben Azadi. And don't forget, pre-order right now, Metabolic Freedom. Ben Azadi, welcome back. to the Thrive State podcast.
My brother, great to be with you. Keen, thrive state. That's what we're going to do right now. We're going to help everybody listening thrive for the rest of their life. Let's go.
You know, I think all of us who are in the health space really have come down to the same truth that we've got some wisdom, probably many evolutions of wisdom in our body. If we give it exactly what it needs, it does what it is supposed to do. And I find that to be so resonant of your book, which we're promoting today. Metabolic Freedom is coming out. And before we even get to it from the very end, I want to say, reading this book, I was truly inspired. So let's just let people know right now when it's coming out.
Thank you, bro. May 13th, the book comes out. It's published with Hay House. It's all about the metabolism, what destroys the metabolism in terms of metabolic dysfunction, what are the causes, what are the solutions, and then it's all tied together in a 30-day plan to achieve this metabolic freedom. And you said something really interesting there. We have this inner wisdom within the body, this innate intelligence, which we do. It's the greatest physician in the world. And as long as you give it what it needs, and it'll harness this innate intelligence where it'll heal the body. But even before we give it what it needs, we need to remove what's been blocking it, right? So the first half of the book talks all about that. What's blocking the innate intelligence? What's blocking your metabolism? Let's identify the interference. The second half works on the solutions, and then it's all tied together. Okay, you learned all of these principles. How do you apply it? Because information alone is not powerful. It's the application of the information. So how do you apply it? And then the book is all wrapped together with that 30-day plan.
That is amazing. I mean, I think people really are going to get into the Thrive State reading your book because it's really about reconnecting with that innate intelligence, breaking free from metabolic dysfunction, which we'll go over is plaguing so many Americans, and it's really bringing energy and resilience back in people. So I can't wait. Now, there's a portion of the show, and I owe you dinner from the last time because you won the 5 to Thrive before, but here we go.
That's right.
Thrive again. And this time, I'm going to let you expand the answer to up to a minute here, and then we'll go a little bit deeper. But since you won it so easily the last time, I'm going to challenge you a little bit more this time. So again, Ben Azadi, are you ready to play the 5 to Thrive?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be, brother. Let's go.
All right. Question number 1. You said in the book that people don't have a weight problem, they have a weight symptom. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is so many people are focused on cutting calories to lose weight to get healthy. Well, the body does not lose weight to get healthy. It gets healthy to lose weight. When you focus on the symptom, which is the extra weight of too much inflammation, hormones out of balance, it puts you on the wrong track. It distracts you from the actual cause. So I never had a weight problem when I was obese. It was a weight symptom. I think a lot of people focus too much on the symptom, which is the extra weight, when the actual cause is hormones and inflammation.
I love that, and I'm just going to piggyback off of that. And I think not only weight, if you're looking at eczema, if you're looking at pain, if you're looking at additional symptoms that you may have, they could be potential gifts from your body saying, hey, something's up. More on that a little bit later. 1,000 points there. Question number 2, 93% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. Why?
Ooh, well, that's multifactorial. I will say, and that is an actual study, right? 93%. That's a 2022 study. I would say the number one reason is that they're getting frequent glucose and insulin spikes. Their body is just constantly burning sugar, which ages you faster, leads to insulin resistance, and then, of course, diabetes, and that opens up a whole world of metabolic disorders. And there are many things that contribute to chronic insulin resistance or high levels of insulin. Of course, it's nutrition, processed carbohydrates, it's inflammatory seed oils, it's environmental toxins. But I would say, for me, all roads lead to high levels of insulin.
All right, there we go. Nice and easy answer. 2,000 points there. Question number 2. You talk about reclaiming our metabolic flexibility. How do we lose it, and why is it critical to get that back?
Well, we're born with it. We're naturally born as a fat burner. If you were breastfed as a baby, you were actually naturally in this fat burning state where you were burning fat, you were burning ketones, you were burning sugar, going back and forth. So you're naturally born metabolically flexible. Where do we lose it? Well, as soon as we wean off the breast milk, we're given this high sugary instant formula. We're now raising these adolescents to eat snacks, high carbohydrate processed foods throughout their lives. And we now taught this naturally fat burning metabolism to burn sugar, and glucose and only burn sugar and glucose. And essentially, we become in a keto deficiency. So 93% of Americans who are metabolically unhealthy, I also call them being in a keto deficiency.
3,000 points. Question number 4 is, what are you going to do right after your book launch? The day after your book launches, you've got this huge launch going on in Florida, and unfortunately, I can't make it because I'll be at a different event. But what will the day after look like for you?
Well, I do have the book launch party, which I would love for you to go, but I know that there's another amazing event happening that day. That's actually a week before the book comes out. So the day after the book comes out, man, I imagine I'll be doing a lot of Instagram lives and some videos, and I'm gonna feel really great because I got the book out into the world, and you know this with your great work and your book. It feels really good. So I'm gonna feel a ton of gratitude. I'm gonna have a big smile on my face. I'm gonna be so grateful that the book is out in people's hands and they're actually reading and listening to it. So I will be happy whatever I'm doing. I know I'll be so pumped up and I'll be in a thrive state for sure that day after the book release.
Amazing. 4,000 points. The last question is this. There are probably micro wins that we get every day that we kind of don't celebrate. Are there certain ways you like to kind of celebrate, whether it be maybe resisting a temptation or doing that workout or accomplishing something? I recognize that it's difficult for me. This is something I've had to learn to do, is give myself some props. How do you do it?
Yeah, it's a really important point because we tend to just want to celebrate accomplishments and big wins, which is great, for sure, celebrate it. But what about all the small things that happen every day that we could celebrate? And, for me, when I'm consistently with my strength training, like yesterday, I had a great workout, definitely celebrated that. I am very intentional with getting my steps in, something I celebrate, walking my dog, just going outside in between, Zoom meetings and interviews to get some sunshine, which I just did like 30 minutes before this call. When I go to bed at night, my routine is to relive the day going backwards. And I start to practice gratitude and celebrate all the things that I was able to do that day. Like you'll be in my gratitude mind tonight when I go to bed. I'll be thinking about that, the time I spent in my backyard. So I rewind my day and start to just celebrate all the things that led me to landing on that bed and getting a good night of sleep.
Sounds good, and it looks like for you, celebrating isn't going out and getting a binger or anything or eating a big cake. It's really getting still and feeling that gratitude in the moment, it sounds like.
That's it. Yeah, and gratitude, as I know you're a big believer and practicer of gratitude. Gratitude is not necessarily a practice, as you just said, it's a feeling. So yes, it's the feeling of gratitude. It's having a grateful heart, which is gratitude is strength training for your soul. So make sure you strength train for that soul every single day. I do it every single day.
Oh, man, extra points there. You win the 5 to Thrive, which means 2 meals now.
Bam, let's go. I'm gonna get some
Alright.
steak.
All right, so I can't wait to dive into this, and, I think with any hero story, there's a version of us that has taken a dip, and I know for you, and we talked about it in our last conversation, it was almost sort of like suicidal thoughts. What was that tipping point? Because there might be some people that have been just going through life knowing that their health isn't right or they're not necessarily in that right direction, and it's reflective on their health as well. For you, what was it? Did you have to reach, a certain point? And how do you think somebody who might not have dipped to that point of getting so low, maybe get some leverage to start making changes in their life?
Yeah, I was at a very low point, and it wasn't almost suicidal thoughts. It was suicidal thoughts. I was on the internet looking for ways to end my life. The search term was how do you what is the easiest way to commit suicide without experiencing pain? That's what I was searching for, and I would have done it. I would not be here today if it wasn't for my mom. Now she didn't know I was doing this, but I kept thinking about her and the devastation it would have caused for her to deal with if I took my life. You don't have to get to that point. Look, there's essentially 2 ways to change the paradigm, your subconscious mind and your belief system, your self-image. It's only 2 ways. An emotional impact is the first way. And 9 times out of 10, an emotional impact, it's negative, it's unpredictable, a lot of suffering has to be involved. Like when I was depressed and suicidal and obese and going through a bad breakup, that was my emotional impact. And I used it eventually, I used it as a blessing, and it is a blessing, and I used it as something as a springboard to get out of, but you don't have to go down that route. And an emotional impact could be a cancer diagnosis, a near-death experience. It changes the way you think, changes the way you behave. But It's usually negative and it's unpredictable. So what's the other way? The other way is constant spaced repetition. You make an irrevocable, committed decision, you're going to change. Now, that's all great and that's all in the conscious mind, right? You know all about this, but something subconsciously is going to hold you back. So we got to change the subconscious mind. And that's where constant space repetition comes from, right? What does that mean? Well, that's what built the subconscious mind, all of your relationships, your conversations. So we need to do the same thing and give you a different input, right? So that means listening to the Thrive State podcast, listening to other great podcasts, reading great books, surrounding yourself with people that are supporting you and rooting for you, turning off the television and listening to a book instead. And then literally what I did is I wrote down, and I do this to this day, I write down the new self-image. I have several of these like all over the place. The new self-image, my new identity, the new subconscious conditioning that I want for myself. And I write it down in present tense and I read it all day long. I read it in the morning, throughout the day, before bed. I'm imprinting this new idea into that subconscious mind until it replaces the old idea. That is the best way to do it because we don't want to have to suffer to make the changes. We don't have to lose somebody or try to commit suicide, like in my case. It's the constant space repetitions, and your environment plays a huge role with what has built your subconscious mind and what's going to change the subconscious mind.
Well, I mean, we can go super deep with that one as well.
I know you can. This is your jam, bro.
You do talk a little bit about suicide. In a sense, we are sort of losing and potentially even, killing is a bad word, but losing that part of the identity, the thoughts, the emotions, the patterns that have created that. And, one of the things we might expand on later on, and when we start to look at how our families have been built, how do we treat each other, the things out in the environment, all these things equal the subconscious mind that creates this ego that makes us create these unconscious choices that make us unhealthy. And doing that work, like, I feel like I'm doing that work every day still. And to me, I think it's going to be a constant choice of choosing this newer version of yourself. But we're probably going to tap into that a little bit more. So stay tuned. Now, in your book, you said that the body isn't a linear system. It's an open system with inflammation. And there's a lot of bro science talk where people are just focusing on calories in, calories out. That's all you have to worry about. And that might be true. Calories is a real thing, but food just isn't calories. It's a part of food. What food also is a bunch of information. So can you talk a little bit about why just focusing solely on calories is outdated?
It's so outdated. And to your point, it's not that calories don't matter. They do. They're just not the most important thing. They're a distraction. They're a huge distraction. And I lived it myself. I used to teach when I used to own a gym here in Miami back in 2013. I used to teach these seminars, the science of fat loss, and I thought I was so clever, teaching my members of my gym to calculate their total daily energy expenditure, their basal metabolic rate. Then we create a deficit, and essentially, when you reach 3,500 calorie deficit, that's 1 pound of fat. Keep doing that until you achieve your goal weight. Here's the problem with it: it works. Most of the time, it works in the beginning. And then what happens is the metabolism will match the energy coming in. And most people think, oh, I just have to cut more or exercise more or do both. And then it works again until it doesn't. And it's not a winning situation. You're relying on willpower, discipline, and it's just not fun to live that way. Again, the premise for that method is lose weight to get healthy.
Yeah.
Now, the premise that I have is get healthy to lose weight. And when you get healthy by lowering inflammation, cell inflammation, where hormones are now balanced, they're able to get into the cell, the weight starts to come off as a side effect. You said it really well. The food is not just calories, it's information. It creates a metabolic response after you consume the food. If it's 500 calories of Snickers versus 500 calories of a piece of steak, same calories, different response after you eat it. And in the book, Metabolic Freedom, I talk about The Biggest Loser and the study that was done on 14 of the contestants that went through this show that were morbidly obese, calorie deficit, lost a ton of weight. The study showed that 13 out of the 14 people gained all the weight back, and some of them even gained more weight. They measured their leptin levels, which is their satiety hormone, and it was plummeted. They measured their ghrelin hormone, which is their hunger hormone, through the roof. So they did a lot of damage, even though they lost a ton of weight short term. And there's also a study I put in the book on fecal microbial transplants and how they took two groups, kept their calories the same. They were all overweight. One group had a fecal microbial transplant to repopulate their gut bacteria for healthier gut bacteria, kept the calories the same, and the group that had a healthier gut bacteria from the transplant started to lose weight. Wow, that is interesting. They ate the same calories. So it's not a closed system. And it's you have law of thermodynamics. It doesn't work in the human body. You have the gut microbiome, you have hormones, you have inflammation. We are not a bank account or a math equation or a calculator. We are a very complex chemistry lab. And the amazing thing about focusing on hormones and inflammation is that you will still lose the weight, but you lose it by getting healthy, and then the weight stays off. You don't have to rely on willpower and sheer discipline. In fact, it becomes really easy when you remove the interference.
Speaking of interference, there's a line that I say in my speech. There was a very similar line from your book, and I'm like, man, we are brothers. We are vibing in the same frequency for sure. My line is, your biography actually dictates your biology. And you say that how you write your story, that story writes your biology. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I love it. And you're an amazing speaker. If you guys haven't seen Dr. Kien in action, man, go watch one of his keynotes. One of the best I've seen on stage, just freaking rocking it. Seen you, well, a couple times, at least once, but I loved when I watched you speak, bro. Everybody watch him speak in person. Yeah, your story, right? Your thoughts, the way you view yourself, your self-image creates your biology. Your self-image is the most important thing. Chapter 10 of the book gets into the self-image, and I'd love to get into that right now. There's a book from the 1960s called Psycho-Cybernetics from a
Mm,
plastic surgeon, Maxwell Maltz. You know the book, doc?
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And this was a world-renowned plastic surgeon, and he would work with individuals who had really wicked facial disfigurements, and they were unhappy, they were self-conscious, they were depressed. So they would hire this guy to perform surgery, and he did a great job removing these facial disfigurements, but he realized even after the surgery, they would literally be looking at themselves in the mirror with the facial disfigurement gone, but their self-image still saw the facial disfigurement. So they were still unhappy. They were still self-conscious. They were still depressed. He had to change their self-image in order for them to feel different, change their biology essentially. We have the same thing going on, especially in the weight loss space, which is the space I'm in. I know when I was losing the 80 pounds of fat in 9 months, I was starting to sabotage myself to match the self-image of an obese person. That was my self-image. And we do that. We will continue to sabotage ourselves with the stories we create, which create our biology, because we will match the self-image. We can't outperform it. I had to literally write down that new self-image and read it and impress it into my mind, subconscious mind, until it replaced the old self-image. This is how we course correct. You will find yourself course correcting by going to the pantry and emotionally eating, by doing drugs, by doing alcohol, by getting back with an ex-girlfriend or a toxic relationship, because you haven't changed the self-image. So it's the stories you create, and you have 60,000 thoughts a day, every day on average, and that's creating your biology. Those thoughts, as Dr. Bruce Lipton has shown with his book, Biology of Belief, communicate to your DNA and signal to your DNA to produce proteins. If it's an unhappy thought, an angry thought, a resentful thought, it's creating inflammatory proteins which shorten your telomere and damage your DNA and shorten your lifespan. But if it's a grateful thought, a loving thought, an abundant thought, that signal that's now sent to the DNA produces anti-inflammatory proteins. So this is incredible because if we have 60,000 thoughts per day, which we do, that means we have 60,000 opportunities to put the body in an anti-inflammatory healing state, which changes your biology with a single thought, which is exactly what you teach, bro.
No, this is completely amazing, and it goes to goes back to this identity thing, and that's one of the things that I think is so critical to know, because sometimes you would look at people and they would have exact strategy and the tactics. They would get the metabolic freedom in the 30 days, and they would do it, and then potentially they'll do it for a little bit. Everybody starts New Year's resolutions and go at it, and willpower only gets you so far. But if you don't start shifting that identity, those subconscious beliefs, how you approach life, and it's going to be different. It's going to feel awkward because you've been doing the same thing for so long. And that identity leads to the thoughts, leads to the emotions, leads to the habits that then creates the messages that you give to your cells.
That's right.
And so are we a little bit more conscious about how we approach these things. There's a very interesting study they did on people with multiple personality disorders. And these people just almost sort of switch consciousness. They almost switch identities at any given point of time. And here's the really weird thing. There would be certain personalities where if you were to test their blood while they were in that personality, they would be diabetic.
Wow.
But they swapped personalities, they would no longer be diabetic. Same person.
Wow.
What
That's
this
crazy.
is
I got
sharing
goosebumps
is
now.
that
That's crazy.
personality, the identity, the thoughts, the emotions, that nervous system is creating that biology. So
Wow.
what you feel, what you think actually creates a living and breathing gauge of all the chemicals and energy that's floating around in your body. And moment to moment, your DNA is listening to the environment that you're giving it. So are we a little bit more conscious about how we choose to live our life?
I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are, I just wanted to let you know, join our community. There's so many free resources and a great community of people that desire health, happiness, human potential, to have more in their life, more health, more energy. And when you have those two things together, you could create more happiness, more abundance, whether it be financial, romantic, all these things in your life. And if you're just starting out, you don't know where to go, just sign up for thrivestatestarter.com, because in there you're going to get a bundle of information that includes a longevity ebook, a longevity and performance resource guide, lecture notes that come from my keynotes at Google, at Fortune 500 companies, all the insights in that keynote in lecture slide form given to you. And then finally, breathwork. I share 3 powerful breathwork exercises to access calm, which really gives you clarity and peace during the day, to access energy if you need to wake up and really motivate yourself, and finally a breathwork routine that you could do every single morning so that you could be very intentional with how you create that day. You could find all this stuff delivered free to your inbox at thrivestatestarter.com. And our community is growing. If you want to be a part of a community of people that desire the Thrive State, that are really in Thrive State themselves, and help other people along with that, you could be a part of the community. You can get group coaching from me. We do breathwork sessions, meditation sessions, and you also get to drop in and participate in podcasts in the future. You could find more about the community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. So check out those resources. You're not going to be disappointed. And please enjoy the remainder of this podcast.
Oh man, that's so good. That's crazy. And I believe that as well. You know, the interesting thing about the subconscious mind is that it's 100% deductive, meaning it accepts everything as truth. The conscious mind is inductive and deductive, actually more inductive, where you could pick and choose. The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between what is reality, meaning what you're using your imagination for, versus what is actually reality versus imagination is what I mean. So when you start to write down this new self-image and these new goals and imprint it in the subconscious mind, it is weird because it's unfamiliar, but understand that the subconscious mind is still accepting all of it. All of that is being accepted as truth. When you were a baby, your subconscious mind was completely open and all the things went in there the first 7 years of your upbringing. And now you're 40 years old, 70 years old, 60 years old, and you're acting as the same person. So if that's what built it, that's the same way to change it, the constant spaced repetition. And your environment is a huge input there.
No, huge, which is why, when we start to look and people ask, how do childhood traumas or how we grow up create disease? And why do we ask about family history? Why does certain parents obese and their kids are obese? And they're wondering, man, is this all genetic? Well, part of it is because, we have something called epigenetic transference, and that's a way for every species on the planet to learn something from one generation. And so it protects the next generation of stuff. And there's a great experiment on mice where they took these male rats, yeah, rats actually, and they exposed them to the smell of cherries. And then they would shock them. And basically, they would condition these male rats with the smell of cherry shock, smell of cherry shock, to the point where they'll just expose them to the smell of cherries. And all of a sudden, they'll get this. These rats had 2 generations of offspring. So basically the grandchildren of these rats, what they did was they never exposed those grandchildren of those rats to any shocks in the past. However, when they were exposed to the smell of cherries, they started to quiver. That's epigenetic transference, and that's our opportunity to heal things that maybe even wasn't in our environment, but our parents' worth of environments. And when we start to look at some of the data from UCSF, for example, on traumas, we've got these big 10 traumas, including divorce, drugs in the family, neglect, etc. But even as kids, not being seen, not being heard, not being able to express who you are, you start to morph and change who you are. And that becomes kind of the seat of the ego. And you go on through life as this version of yourself that's not really you. I believe carrying a mask around that's not you, it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And what I've also found from my research is that actually drives inflammation and increases the aging process. So as you are talking and as I was reading your book, it's like so much of what health is just reawakening to the greatness and the beauty and the love that you are.
Mm.
How have you found that to be the case? Because, I follow your content. And look, if you haven't already followed this guy, follow this guy because he would just post the things that he does and the things that he reads. And you could just tell he is constantly putting himself in the mind space to be able to absorb new things, learn new things. What has that felt like to you to go from obese to here? And I know for me, reversing my health is really kind of like an awakening to life.
Yeah. Thank you for that, bro. And that study on it's with the cherry, wild, wild. We could break that pattern, right? We could do the work, and then our children or future grandchildren don't have to deal with some of the things that we're dealing with. It's everything, living on purpose with your purpose, your true authentic self. Unfortunately, most people, I probably estimate 97% of people are not. They're what Earl Nightingale used to say, tiptoeing their way through life, hoping to land safely on death's door. And I remember Bill Gove, he was known as the father of professional keynote speaking. Back in the day, he taught Bob Proctor how to speak. And I'm actually doing one of his training right now. But he used to say that if I want to be free, I've got to be me. Not the me I think you think I should be, not the me I think my wife thinks I should be, not the me I think my kids think I should be. If I want to be free, I've got to be me. So I better know who me is, right? So many people don't even know who their true self is. They're living their life of what others expect of them, what society expects of them, and they're unhappy, they're unhealthy, they're not tired, they're uninspired. They're in the opposite of a thrive state. They're disintegrating, and nothing stays the same. You're either thriving and creating or you're disintegrating. You're not staying the same. Nothing stays the same. But when you find purpose in your life, whatever that is, it could be being the best mom, dad in the world, soccer coach, podcaster, YouTube, whatever it is. When you find what you love to do and you live on purpose with your purpose, you have all the energy, you have all the vitality, you're in a thrive state. And I talk about the science of longevity as it relates to purpose in chapter 10. And I share this study from Harvard psychologist Ellen Langer from 1981, where she took nursing home residents. It was a group of 18 of them. And half of the group, so 9 of them, were told, I'm giving you a house plant. You have a responsibility, a goal to take care of the house plant, and your schedule. You have full autonomy over your schedule. It's your schedule. Do what you want to do. The other group, she said, I'm giving you a house plant, but it's not your responsibility or goal to take care of it. The staff will take care of it, and you do not have any autonomy in your schedule. We're going to control your schedule. So they had no goals, no purpose. After 18 months, twice as many people in the group given responsibility over a house plant and their schedule were alive versus those who were not. Something as simple as that, just having a purpose. And look, we see this all the time with people who retire and don't find something else that lights them up or any goal. Their lifespan is shortened. Studies are showing that. And I talk about that in the book. And it makes sense to me because God cannot do for you what he wants to do through you. And if you're not doing anything, you're just sitting and watching TV all day, you're not using this human body the way God designed. You have a spirit, you are a spirit, excuse me, in a human body. And this spirit is designed to experience all the amazing things in life God wants you to experience. And if you're not doing that with the human body, it makes sense that why should I give you the energy and vitality? So it is so important. I can tell you, and I know you have the same experience. I did not live on purpose with my purpose. I was lost in life. I was tiptoeing my way through life and I was tired and uninspired. Now I have all the energy. I have all the vitality. I feel incredible. At age 40, I'm the healthiest I've ever felt in my life. And a big part of that is that I know what's important to me. I'm authentic and I live incongruent with my authenticity and I'm living on purpose with my purpose.
That's so beautiful. I look at the human body as a beautiful plan of how almost every ecosystem works. We are this human body made up of systems, made up of organs, made up of tissues, made up of individual cells. And the thing is, when it gets everything it needs, it shares with the body. That ultimately, in turn, gives us optimal health, performance, and just gives us more life. As long as it does its thing, a heart cell just pumps, a lung cell just extracts the oxygen, not thinking, it's just thinking, I'm just going to give to everybody else. All of a sudden, you create this ecosystem where you just automatically get back. You don't have to worry about it. When we start to create an environment of stress by, let's just say, you and I making unconscious choices in our life and giving it poor signals, when the cells start to feel stressed, oh my God, shoot, I got to fend for myself. I don't belong to anything. I'm going to fend for myself. I'm going to just divide. Let me hoard up all the glucose. Let me hoard up all the oxygen. Guess what? That's a cancer cell.
Mm.
When it gets confused, oh my God, you're evil over there. You start attacking yourself. That's autoimmune disease. It's what happens when we give the stress state into our body. And this is like, I think, a beautiful way of how we can start to really see what humanity really is, because we are probably the macro to what our body is the micro. And we have to start to see that we are really truly connected to each other. And just like a cell is in the body to all the other cells in the body, we are connected. And here's the thing, when we start to think that way, we turn off those old subconscious programs because they were caused because we didn't feel safe. We didn't feel connected. We didn't feel love. And that creates this ego, subconscious, fear-driven thing that draws inflammation. But when we start to serve, here's the other awesome thing. We are gifted with the things that will give us more life. So when we feel more alive, when we do joy, when we're in our passion, epigenetically, that actually extends our life. So, like, the universe, God, whatever you might believe in, is gifting you. When you feel the alive and joy and just you being you, you get more life.
Mm.
So, I mean, that's why when I was reading through your book, particularly when I got to chapter 10, it was like, wow, this is a spiritual journey of remembering. And I wonder what your take on this is. At some point, I was like ashamed of myself with disease and I wanted to beat that part up. But I think in the spiritual sense, it's almost sort of like we're all brought here whole, but given this human body, biology, nervous system, subconscious that makes us forget, but only so that we could remember and then know. I think we're given things in contrast in life. How do you know hot if you never experience cold, right?
Mm.
So I wonder what your take is, and I think I've already heard you refer to those symptoms in that part of your life as being a big blessing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you're right. There's an opposite for everything. It's the law of polarity,
Got
up,
it.
down, left, right, right? That's a universal law. You can't argue that. It's a universal law. And the symptoms that we deal with are not the problem. They're a result of the problem. They're a blessing. It's your body's check engine light. It's your body's way of communicating to you. We're not taught that, right? We're taught your symptoms are bad. Go get a medication, do a surgery, do a dangerous diet. But it's your body's way of communicating to you to wake you up because something you're eating, you're thinking, something in your environment, something you're doing with your lifestyle is taking your incredible human body out of balance. So I will show you a check engine light, which is a symptom, and as a way to gauge you back, get you back on track. So pay attention to it. It's not a curse, it's a blessing. If you're dealing with the symptom, give thanks for it. Ask the question, what are you trying to tell me? Like if you are getting constant headaches, is it something you're eating? Are you eating too much sugar? Are you getting too much artificial light? Is there mold in your environment? Start exploring. Use it as an opportunity to get curious and explore and just start using it as a checklist. Okay, wasn't this, wasn't that? You'll find the reason why. You'll find the cause. It's the old whack-a-mole game when you're chasing symptoms. The arcade game, and I know you have a daughter, correct? You have, yeah.
Dude,
What? Two. Yeah. So when you take your kids to the arcade, there's usually that old whack-a-mole game. At least there was when I was a kid, and a mole pops up, which is a symptom. And typically, what allopathic medicine does, as you know really well, they'll use a medication or prescription to nail down that mole. And in other words, mask the symptom. And then what happens? You get another symptom, another mole pops up, and it's this never-ending whack-a-mole game. But let's open up this freaking arcade and find out why are there moles here in the first place? Like, what's the cause of the first mole? Let's start getting to the interference and remove the interference. The body will heal itself. You know, we mentioned the word God, and you said, Mother Nature loved the universe, and I respect anybody's belief system. And I just think it's important to have a belief in a higher power, whether it is God or Mother Nature. For me, it's God. I have a strong relationship with God. And yesterday I was walking with my fiance. We were walking my dog. It was April Fool's yesterday. And I said, I said, "Oh, Natasha, today's National Atheist Day." And she's like, "What do you mean?" And then I said, "Well, Bob Proctor used to share a story about these two people having a debate on national TV. This is like from the 1980s. It was a devout atheist and then a devout, I think, Christian. And they were going back and forth about like God and faith and then atheism. And the atheist said, the only good thing about believing in God is that you have a lot of holidays and time off from the holidays. And then the guy who believes in God said, well, that's not true. All atheists also have a holiday they celebrate. And the atheist goes, what holiday is that? And he goes, April the 1st. Uh, so, I mean, I say that jokingly, whether you believe in God, Mother Nature, love the universe. I know that when you have a connection to a higher power, you are going to be happier, more grateful, healthier. It's going to extend your lifespan. So find what that means to you. For me, it's God. For me, I to God every day. My gratitude practice has God in it. I give glory to God. God's on my self-image cards. But find what that is for you, and it's just going to be incredible. You know how it lights you up.
no, I mean, I think if you get connected with that, you can really truly understand the huge miracle and blessing it is to be alive. I remember when I had my year-old daughter, she ended up born with a cord wrapped around her neck and ended up in the ICU. I didn't know if she was going to have any brain damage or whatnot. And I remember holding her in my arms for the first time and looking down at her. And, I didn't care about the brain damage. I didn't care anything. I just looked at her and I'm like, oh my God, I love her so much. I mean, and how precious is life, you know? It seems like our society creates environments where we forget that so easily. And I think if we could remember that moment to moment, and if we live in that energy, you send some really special signals to your cells, going to extend your life and put you in, great states of health.
Yeah, amen, brother. And I know that story. I remember you shared it at the conference. Powerful story, and I'm so glad she's doing good. Every morning when I walk out of my house, I walk my dog every morning. The first thing I say, thank you, God, for another amazing day here on planet Earth in my healthy, healing human body. That's what I say every morning. And the more you appreciate something, the more it appreciates. Another universal law, which you feed energy into expand. I'm a big believer that what you think about, what you think about, you bring about.
Mm.
So whether that's you saying, thank you, Mother Nature, for another day on planet Earth, in my human body, my healthy human body. The truth is this, and this is another conversation I had with Natasha yesterday. It's interesting that we're talking about this. I was talking about the human body being just a meat suit, and we're really a spirit. And all scientists, atheists, and people who are religious all agree that energy is never created nor destroyed, right? We all agree to that. So atheists and scientists call the spirit energy. We call it spirit, but it's all energy, and energy is never created or destroyed, meaning when the human body passes away, yes, the physical form is gone. But where is the spirit going? Natasha was saying, I'd love for there to be a heaven, but she doesn't know if that is to be the case. And are we reincarnated? I don't know. We'll find out one day. But the truth is that the spirit never dies. It goes somewhere because energy is never created nor destroyed. But if we could treat this amazing human body so lovingly, show it love, show it respect, give it all the foods it needs, remove the interference. We could house this amazing soul for as long as possible to experience the relationships, the joy, the thrive state, the happiness, the wealth, everything we want, the riches. And riches doesn't mean money, it means anything that you want to grow. So I think it's just amazing to have this conversation and how the incredible human body is, the way that it was built to heal itself. It's just so remarkable.
It is super, super amazing. Look, I know people got a lot out of this conversation, and I love how you make it so accessible by telling your stories and, backing it by science and then having this 30-day plan. So before I ask you my last question, tell people all about the book, when they could start to pre-order and all the details.
Thank you, brother. You could get the book right now, whether it's a pre-order or if you're listening to this later on, a regular order. We were giving away a free 2 free gifts for those who order. The first gift is on the metabolism that I built out, 12 lessons for you to understand how the metabolism works, how to use keto the right way, fasting the right way, other ways to use different tools to restore the metabolism. And in that course, the second gift are additional interviews that you cannot find anywhere else with Dr. Daniel Pompa, Dr. Jason Fung, Megan Ramos, and Cynthia Thurlow. All that's in the course. You get that for free when you go to metabolicfreedombook.com. On that page, you'll see several different retailers to purchase the book: Amazon, Barnes and Noble's, Books and Books, wherever you want to use. The book is available on hardcover, Kindle, and Audible. I narrated the Audible myself. So whatever outlet you buy it, once you buy it, on that page, you put your name, email, and order number, and then you're instantly sent the login access for the course and the interview. So it is metabolicfreedombook.com for that.
Get it, get it, get it. Get it now. Get your free gifts. I mean, you'd love it. I mean, I feel good. I was really looking forward to the conversation because as I was reading through, I'm like, oh man, someone's also on the journey, this beautiful journey of awakening to this beautiful vessel that we've been given.
I love it.
Last question for you is, in a world that I think currently is flooded with fear and misinformation, what does it feel like in your body to live in metabolic freedom now? And what message would you give to those who are still stuck in survival?
Fear knocked on the door, love answered, and no one was there. Love yourself. Love people that have hurt you. Love people that you've been hating. You're not doing yourself any favor when you're hating somebody. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So it starts with loving yourself, even loving people that have done horrible things to you. It's not for them, it's for you to let go. Because as you just said, living in a fearful state, the opposite of a thrive state. You're catabolic, stress hormones, you're weakening your immune system. So love yourself. Get your daily dose of vitamin G. Vitamin G is anti-inflammatory. UC Davis shows those who take vitamin G have lower blood pressure, lower A1C. Harvard put a study out in JAMA that I published in the book looking at 49,000 nurses, showing that the nurses who took vitamin G had a 9% reduction in all-cause mortality versus nurses who didn't, and a 15% reduction in cardiovascular deaths versus the nurses who didn't. So vitamin G is not a sponsor of the show. You cannot find a link in the affiliate link in the notes below, because vitamin G is the practice of gratitude. Dr. Kien, you're all about gratitude. You teach it, you live it, you breathe it, you practice it. So those studies are all on vitamin G, all on gratitude. So love yourself, practice gratitude, send love to people who have done you wrong, and continue living in that thrive state.
Ooh, so good. Ben, it's always a pleasure to connect with you. I mean, you are someone, you meet a bunch of influencers and, thought leaders out in the world. And, sometimes you don't feel a true connection. You're the real deal. You're one of the cells in a thriving human body. Thank you for this. And everybody, make sure you pick up your copy of Metabolic Freedom now. Ben Azadi, thanks for being on the Thrive State podcast.
Love and appreciate you, bro. I feel the same way. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoy that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if you're finding that this content is really helping you and your family members, please consider supporting our mission and our cause of elevating health, happiness, and human potential for people all over the world. You can do so by making sure that you subscribe to this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family members, and leaving us a 5-star review wherever podcasts are heard. All these things are going to really help elevate the show and to give us the resources to continue to bring more content just like this to yourself as well as the people that you love. If you haven't already, you might want to consider joining our community. We actually have a community where people get to engage with me in group sessions where we do breath work, meditation, where we do challenges together, really to be able to get us access to health, happiness, human potential so that we could have longevity and performance in our life as well. You can check out our community at mythrivestate.com. That's mythrivestate.com. And if you haven't already, pick up a copy of my book, Thrive State. It really gives you all the tools, the pillars that you need to create a blueprint to control the energetics of your life. Who are you? How you show up in the world? The choices that you consistently make create an energy in your body, and you can control this. And when you can control that, you also control the messages you give to your DNA that gives you access, again, to optimal health, longevity, and peak performance. And let me also just share a free gift to you. If you haven't already, please pick up my longevity and performance bundle where I share lecture notes, ebooks, breathwork exercises, and longevity and performance resources at thrivestatestarter.com. Thank you so much for being a part of this community. Thank you for helping us grow. Remember always, my friends, that you are your best medicine.